Hello everyone, what's happening? You're here with me, Dave, on the Empire, and it is time for another video game review. This week we are taking a look at the latest and greatest game from Sony and their Santa Monica studios. It is the re-release of God of War. Now I'm going to open this review with a question, and that question is, when is a reboot more than a reboot? If you look at a lot of video games, they have some fairly basic modernizations. They apply high-resolution texture packs. They do their greatest hits, if you will. They rarely go and do what Santa Monica has done, which is actually fundamentally change every single piece of the game from the ground up, with the exception of the protagonist. And in truth, I can quite honestly tell you that the only part that remains of the original God of War games in this reboot is Kratos himself, the Greek god of war, who finds himself in the land of Midgard and the home of the Norse gods. And of course, you wouldn't expect someone from the Greek pantheon to be welcome in the land of the Norse gods. It's an interesting start to the game, and one which is carried through thematically throughout this game, and it tells a really interesting and compelling storyline. The game opens with Kratos and his son Atreus having to take Atreus' mother's ashes to the tallest peak in Midgard in order to fulfill her dying wish. It is a sad and somber start to the game, but it is, of course, the classic hero's journey. They're given a task to fulfill and they must go forth and do the thing. Now, I don't wish to spoiler the game, and that means that really I should probably stop telling you particulars from the story about there. But what I can tell you about this game is that it tells a beautiful and just frankly amazing tale, and it has the grandness of previous God of War games, with the giant creatures and the spectacle, but all of it realized in a way which I have rarely seen delivered on a console. It is a staggeringly beautiful game. There's no doubt about that. Now, we played this on the PlayStation 4 Pro. We played it at 1080p and at their 4K checkerbox resolution. We played it with HDR on and HDR off. We had a bit of a play with all of the available settings, and we have captured it at 1080p 30 in this video, which is why you're probably not seeing it at its best particularly, but the performance mode that you get in the PS4 Pro allows that 1080p video to in fact be super sampled up to the 4K checkerbox, so you still get like a slight benefit over the original 1080p. Now, if you're playing it on the PS4 Pro and you play it in performance mode, which is the 1080p native setting, you will get an increased frame rate. So if you go for performance mode, it focuses on the frame rate and delivers 1080p, so you get the PS4 experience with a frame rate boost, and if you go for resolution mode, you get the benefit of some upscaling in terms of textures and obviously the resolution itself. If you have the opportunity to do so, I would recommend playing this game in 4K. It is staggeringly beautiful. It is a lovely, lovely game. There are parts where you just stop and look around, and there's mist rolling down hills and rolling around Kratos and Atreus, and it'll be a call from your son Atreus in the game that brings you back to reality, as he tells you that he's found something and that you should go there and have a look at it. And this game is a remarkable journey, and I'm going to use the word journey quite a lot in this, because at its heart it is a journey. It's not a hack and slash. It's not a revenge story. It is a tale and a experience to be experienced. It's I've rarely found games that are as well delivered as this. Usually I would reserve praise like that for stuff that came out of Naughty Dog Studios, you know, your Last of Us type games and your Uncharted games, games that tell a grand and beautiful adventure, and that I have always suggested are among the very best of the PlayStation exclusive stable. It's right up there, and in some ways I believe it exceeds even them, which is just, I didn't really think I would ever be saying that. So that's a new one for me. Now I'm going to spend a little while talking about how the mechanics of the game work, because like everything else, they've basically looked at the old ways and gone, no, we're going to try doing something different. Your main weapon is the Leviathan axe, which is, quite frankly, kick-ass. It's a great axe. Does all the kinds of damage that you need it to. You can throw it and summon it back to your sides. It freezes stuff. It does all kinds of cool things. It is highly customizable and highly upgradable. Atreus is your little assistant in a lot of respects. He obviously is armed with a bow, and generally he harasses enemies whilst you are in encounters, and he helps you by distracting enemies and giving you the opportunities that you need to start putting together those combos and those chains that will get you into that that Spartan frenzy that Kratos has always sort of had inside him. Combat flows really well. It's definitely slower than previous God of War titles. It's not as frantic. The encounters are smaller and more tactical as well. Enemies have certain weaknesses and weak areas, and some of them are immune to certain types of attack. If you are not able to use your axe because either you've thrown it away or it's serving another purpose, Kratos is also really handy with his fists, which is quite cool as well. And you've got this funky little sort of instant on-off shield that you can parry with, and yeah, the flow of combat around the sort of the parrying, countering, calling in the axe, and then smiting people, because let's not forget that you are still a god, is definitely one of the deeply satisfying parts of this game. There's some good puzzles in the game as well. As you progress, they become more complex, obviously. A lot of the really cool items that you can find in the game are hidden behind puzzles or logic traps or things that you have to observe in the environment. They do want you to explore the world that they have put together. And whilst it is not as big as perhaps anything like an Assassin's Creed map or or Horizon Zero Dawn or any of your big sort of sandbox games, there is definitely still quite a lot of exploration and nice things to do in the game when you're not taking on a whole bunch of bad guys. And of course, any exploring is usually rewarded with an encounter which will give you items, and you will encounter other interesting and cool people in the game that will help you out. And I must admit, I'm actually quite a fan of your dwarven friends who are there to do all of your blacksmithing and help you upgrade all your gear and buy new gear and forge new gear, and that's a really cool little encounter, and they're quite the pair, quite enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, the combat's very, very strong. The story is absolutely amazing. The graphics and scenery and pacing and the feel of the game are just stunning. It is a generation defining game, and I can see why Santa Monica Studios have been developing this for 5 years. They have been pouring their hearts into this, and I am so happy that this game is as good as it is. It is it's a brilliant game, and if you own a PlayStation 4, you should absolutely play this, and I mean that. You should be playing this game when it is released on April the 20th. And if you don't own a PS4 and you were looking at this game and wondering whether it was enough to push you into buying a PS4, I would say that it actually is. It is worthy. You should buy this, and you should buy Horizon Zero Dawn, and you should experience two of the greatest games that have been released for the PlayStation 4 console ever. So do that. Now, you can tell from what I'm saying about this game that obviously I quite like it. And I do. I mean, obviously we were given a copy by PlayStation for the purposes of this review. And that is simply part of what we do. The opinion that I have for this game is entirely my own. I think that this is absolutely a contender for the Game of the Year, and we're only 1/3 of the way through the year, but it is a glorious game. And I try not to give out too many masterpiece ratings throughout a year. In fact, I usually try not to do more than one a year, because rarely is a game so good that it is worthy of what we would consider to be a masterpiece score. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to give this game a 10 out of 10. It is an astounding game. It continuously surprises me, and it continuously makes my jaw drop. And whilst it's not perfect, no game is ever perfect, it is a remarkable journey, and one that rewards you every step of the way, and one that you feel is the right balance of challenge and story, and it will be a rewarding experience playing this game. So for that reason, and the fact that it just looks incredible and it plays incredible, and I struggle to find anything negative to say about it, it is a 10 out of 10. So thanks very much for checking out this video. If you like what we said here, leave us a thumbs up. If you don't like it, leave us a thumbs down. Please do take the time to like, comment, favourite, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, stay with us here on The Empire for more video game reviews from me, your mate Dave. That was a bit crap. Just say Dave. And yeah, you have been checking out The Empire. Thanks very much. See ya.